Our national debt now stands at about $32 trillion. How did we get here? Whose fault is it? Republicans? Democrats? Well, the answer is yes. Both parties are at fault for different reasons. Republicans come to this floor, and will come to this floor today, saying we need unlimited military spending. And Democrats will come to this floor and say we need unlimited welfare spending. And guess what happens? They compromise. People say Washington doesn't compromise. They compromise all of the time. That's what this debt deal that's before us is compromise. But the compromise is always to spend more money. How do we know that? The debt deal that's been crafted by Biden and McCarthy is an unlimited increase in the debt ceiling. See, historically, when we raised the debt ceiling, it would be $100 billion or $200 billion or, God forbid, $1 trillion. It was a dollar amount. This debt ceiling will go up till January 2025. How many dollars will be borrowed? As many as they can possibly shovel out the door. It will be how much money can you shovel out the door until January 2025. That's how much we will spend. Is there a dollar amount? No. How much can you shovel it out and how fast can you shovel it out? There will be no restraint from this debt deal. There is a pretense. There is a playing around the edges as if, oh, there might be a cut here or there might be a cut there. There are no cuts. Why? 2/3 of your spending is entitlement spending. The on-budget entitlement spending is Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and other programs. They are called mandatory and no one ever looks at them. They go on in perpetuity. This is what drives the deficit. Who took them off the table? How come there's no discussion of this? Actually, Republicans took them off the table because they fear being criticized by the Democrats. It's being used in the presidential campaign. Let's not talk about the entitlements, but that's 2/3 of what gets spent every year. So if you don't talk about the entitlements, if you don't talk about mandatory spending, you're frankly not a serious...
No, I don't. I really think that it's a vote that gets down to a bottom line question. Do we want to default on America's national debt for the first time in our history? Do we want to put into question the stability and future of our U.S. currency, the dollar? Do we want to endanger families and businesses who could see interest rates really start hurting and their savings start diminishing? The answer to all of those is an obvious no. And if that's the case, you have to vote at bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, to pass this measure. Do I like all of it? No. But that's the nature of Congress and the nature of a compromise.
A lot of senators on both sides of the aisle very upset about the process, upset, too, about what is in the bill, what may not be in the bill in some cases. Senator Kaine, your colleague from Virginia, is very upset about the inclusion of a pipeline that is a pet project of Democratic Senator Joe Manchin's, a pipeline that would go from West Virginia, Manchin State, into Kaine State, Virginia. Why do you think the White House blindsided Kaine with that?
I don't know the answer to that, and I can tell you Tim Kaine is one of our best, and Joe Manchin is a friend. And they feel very strongly about this issue, and they're on opposite sides.
In the mumble time. Oh, we haven't gotten to the punchline yet. Okay, we'll come back to the punch here. I'm jumping the. Let's go ahead and play. I got to get to the punchline. Let's go ahead and play it. I jumped ahead, folks. Let's go ahead and play it.
It's a tough moment for the Senate Democratic Caucus as to how this is going to work out. I don't know how it got in the bill, but at this point, I think passage of the bill and avoiding default is the major challenge that we face.
Do you think the White House handled that poorly, considering that it normally has such a positive relationship with Senator Kaine?
The White House has a positive relation with Tim Kaine for sure, and also with Joe Manchin on the Inflation Reduction Act, which did so much to move us forward. So I don't know the details on who was notified and who should have been notified. We're going to face a tough vote with two of our friends that we value in the caucus on opposite sides.
So do you think that the White House should have more seriously considered the 14th Amendment as an authority for raising the debt ceiling? This is something that your Democratic colleague, Senator Blumenthal, urged earlier today.
Here's the problem that I saw. If this went into the courts, there is no guarantee that there would be a timely decision, enough time for us to avoid defaulting on our debt. I happen to think there's a good argument about Section 4 of Article 14. And we should make that argument. Perhaps now we can find a way to bring it before the court. But ultimately, that decision is going to be made by a Supreme Court, which is not predictable on a subject like this. So to have the fate of the American economy hanging in the balance of a long court process or an uncertain Supreme Court decision and then dump back in our laps is something I didn't want to see happen. It was bad timing.
But how worried are you that this is just going to become the norm whenever this needs to be raised?
Well, that's why the starting point in this negotiation, which Speaker McCarthy insisted on, was that we would postpone facing this again at least until the end of next year. And that, to me, is a promise that really convinced a lot of us that we can move forward and not have this hanging over our heads.
All right, Senator Durbin, thank you.
Okay, welcome. 202-224-3121. They might have shut down the switchboard for the night. The Senate floor is right there. It's quiet. It's supposed to be this big debate. We're going to get all the details about exactly how this is moving through. We already know that a group of neocons are going to press hard on increases to the defense budget, although I think it's locked in at the second year, $890 billion. That also doesn't include everything that's actually spent on defense, because it'll take it up to over $1 trillion. Remember, all the nuclear weapons were all over the Department of Energy. And there's a lot more that are doesn't include any of the intelligence apparatus, doesn't include any of it. So when you add all of the national security, it's well over $1 trillion. And of course, they need more money for Ukraine. They're pretty open about the more money for Ukraine. There is so much going on right now, and I want to thank you. I actually, and everything we're going on, I missed it. Actually, Dan Bishop, our guy Dan Bishop, actually said this yesterday on Fox. I want to appreciate people sent it to me. They hadn't really noticed it, or it hadn't been a big deal until Durbin said it right there, the buried lead that Kevin McCarthy demanded. It was Kevin McCarthy insisted, and then we heard from Eli Crane, who called in. Congressman Crane, back in his district in Arizona, or heading towards getting off the plane from D.C. in the Phoenix Metroplex, and he calls in and says, yeah, McCarthy said that at the conference. He insisted. And why did he insist? Because he said he insisted because our party will be weaker in May of 2024. Now, how would that be weaker? How would that be weaker? Let me think about that for a second. How would it be weaker? Oh, yeah, that's the end of the primaries when Donald Trump's going to sweep to victory. That's what he means. That's what he means. But if that's not what he means, then explain. How's the party possibly going to be weaker? How's it possibly going to be weaker? We'd actually have more leverage. Biden would have another disastrous year in the economy. You'd blow through the cap, right? And you'd be back at the table with all the leverage. Remember, the American people, the numbers here were the most shocking numbers I think this city has seen on any topic. Even more than the transgender, and we're seeing 2/3, 75%. This was CNN and other polling that confirmed Harry Enton, the pollster of CNN. 60% of the American people, all the American people, agreed that increases to the budget can only come with significant spending decrease. 15% in the poll said, we just ought to default because we're bankrupt anyway and we're just kidding ourselves. So 75% of the American people said either default and figure out something else, or, and challenge them, call their bluff, or just big cuts if you're going to increase the debt ceiling. 75%. That shocked the city, including 45% of the Democrats. And remember, all they're getting is the mainstream media. All they're getting is relentless avalanche of, oh my God, they're cutting things. It's crisis. The crisis has got to be June 1st. No, June 2nd. It's got to be May 5th. It's all over. You're not going to get your Social Security payment. Your veterans are going to be put out in the street. It's the end of days. It is the end of days. All lies and misrepresentation. The American people being bombarded with that are still sitting there going, yeah, okay, I hear you. I got that. But if you're going to increase it, you got to cut spending. I hear you, but you got to cut spending. And the system can't work like that. So McCarthy went in and basically said his opening bid, he insisted. Remember Durbin's word, he insisted. He insisted. Let me repeat that. He insisted. And now we know from Eli Crane, he told the conference that he had done it. That he had done it. And the reason is his logic was that the party will be weaker. Will be weaker a year from now. Let me think about that. Let me scratch my head. Let me think about that for a second. We'll be weaker a year from now. What year? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the end of the primary. That's right. Donald Trump will blown up. I don't know. By that time, they'll have 20 Keebler L's would have come in thing. And, of course, Chris Sununu being there and, Brian Kemp, and you're going to get Young. Can you get them all? Everybody's going to get a turn in the barrel. Everybody will get a turn in the barrel. They're all going to get a turn. All of them. Because the money is looking for an answer to Trump. The big money is, and that's why you can't take any of the stuff at face value that you're seeing with these candidates, some very well-intentioned by these policies, because it's all the money in back of them that want the system. What does the money want? They want exactly what happened here the last couple of days. What are Wall Street and the tech world? They want exactly what happened. The defense contractors, Big Pharma, they want exactly what happened. They don't care if you go to 37 trillion. They don't care if you go to 40 trillion. They don't care if you go. You're paying the price. It's your wages that have not increased since 1970, real wages, right? You're the schmendrick. You're the sucker. You're the one that's you're paying the tab, either your pension funds and or through taxes, right? Paying to destroy your donations to your political party. So you get your donation to your political party, your taxes, and the private, your pension funds and your insurance company money funding the private equity that's shipping all the jobs over and doing the AI and basically partnering with the CCP. Jamie Dimon, Bill Ackman, the great patriot Bill Ackman, one of the most destructive guys in this country. Creative destruction. A Wall Street guy, a know-it-all hedge fund guy. He puts up yesterday on his Twitter. He just thought of something. He had a moment of inspiration, a moment of just this burning. These are these blinding insights that people pay. That your pension money for the teachers and the firemen and all of it, the state pension workers in California, Oregon, Florida, but California and Oregon being the two hot ones. That you pay 2 and 20. You pay 2% management fee and 20% of the ups. Oh, by the way, it's all count as capital gains, right? Because of carried interest, they don't get taxed really. They don't get taxed the real way. They got that just a tiny little wrinkle to that. The game is totally rigged and you're the sucker. And now you find out that your political donations and you're ringing the doorbells and being a good soldier that, they wanted the one time you got a tiny bit of leverage and you fought and you got 10 seats and you got a 5-seat majority and you came back. They screwed you in the omnibus, but you came back and you stood strong in the first week of January. And all of Fox News, all of them are telling you chaos and you're terrible and it's all going to fall apart. But you hung out there and you've got it. And they got these great elements and these great procedural elements and all this, and gave you some more leverage. And finally, we kept on the debt ceiling. That's your leverage, and you got them, and you're choking them down. I say, we got them. And they said you couldn't get a bill because you guys are legislative terrorists. That's what you are. You're legislative terrorists. This is ultra MAGA extremists. Ultra MAGA extremists can never get a bill. Guess what? We got a bill. Did you love the bill? No, you did not love the bill. Didn't think it did enough. There's a little too much happy talk, happy clappy, lots of happy clappy in there. But it had a cap of 1.5 trillion and it had a duration of 1 year. Whatever came first. And they would have to come back. And once they came back, you had them. You had them. And what does McCarthy do? McCarthy, first thing, opening bid. When you're negotiating with killers like Hakeem Jeffries and these guys, these are political assassins. Did you see him? He owned McCarthy. That was humiliating. McCarthy has to run over from the table, the whip table. He has to go over and get Hakeem Jeffries at the end of the rule, where it's not going to get voted out. You got 30. We had the 20. Now we got 10 more. Because as we said on the show today, you vote against the rule is like voting against the speaker. That's up in your grill. And this is after they changed the deal from January. I remember quite distinctly. It's supposed to be unanimous. They tell me, well, that may be not what they finally agreed to. Okay, I got it. So Tom Massey got jiggy on that. Right, he got jiggy, and he says his engineering side came out of his political side. I have no idea what that means. He's quite idiosyncratic, but it is what it is. But they couldn't get, even with that was a committee. They couldn't get it off thing until Hakeem Jeffries came and saved him, and they cut the deal where they're going to get the small things in the district, the cash. And of course McCarthy sits there, and the reporter is asking him, "Hey, we just saw you talking. Did you have to make a deal? Did you have to make a compromise? And it looks from right now, no, there was no deal. No deal. There was no deal. Upon further review, that's a bald-faced lie, of which Hakeem Jeffries and his team, because did I mention they're political assassins? I mean, you're sending boys up against men. Hakeem Jeffries people are men. You're not sending Graves and the little guy with the bow tie and McCarthy. These guys are political assassins. I think Hakeem Jeffries traded by like Meade Esposito. These are Meade Esposito. President Trump tell you million stories about him. Meade Esposito. They run the biggest city in the world, and they run it the way they want to run it. And everything is a negotiation. And trust me, they ain't doing anybody any favors. Everything comes at a price, and it came at a price yesterday to even get it off the floor. And why would he do it? Because it was kind of tip money, but he got something for it. Got a little something for the, give me a little something for the action, a little something for the effort. You say, give me a little something for the effort. Because it's a Democrat bill. Democrat bill. It's a Democrat bill. They can't. That's why I said today, and I put up on Getter, the story in Politico. Tell the 149, if you're in the district, take that Politico article. It's not Breitbart. It's not Gateway Pundit. It's not Citizens Free Press. It's not Rakeem Kassam and the great team over National Pulse. This is Politico. They got it right there. They got everything they wanted. They're trying to hold back the glee because they don't want to mess up to actually get it signed and funded. They're belly laughing because they got of course they got everything. It's obvious. Anybody sophisticated. It's totally obvious. But now to know the opening. So what happens when you go over to the White House and McCarthy goes over and he offers that he's going to take, they passed a bill. We have a bill that's giving him a lift to the debt ceiling. Remember, we gave him a bill, $1.5 trillion in 1 year, that we offer up. That in fact, we insist, if Durbin's words were very precise, he insisted that it'd be 2 year, no cap. The 149 will never be able to, that is indelible. You can take the wire, you can scrub with the wire brush. That will never come off. You're condemned forever to live with that vote. And now it's up to constituents. They're afraid to go home. You know this, right? They've sold the deal inside the thing. They got all the lobbyists, everybody's talking, they're doing all this. They're all this, but they understand the peasants with the pitchforks, they ain't happy. Because you know why? They're not stupid. In fact, they're quite intelligent. In fact, if you gave me McCarthy's leadership team, here's what I would tell you. I tell you, here's what I would do. As an honors graduate of the Harvard Business School and an associate and VP in the M&A department of Goldman Sachs, the elite. Here's what I would tell you. If you gave me McCarthy's entire leadership team to negotiate this, and let's say there's 8, they've got the top 3, but a couple more. Let's say they got a half a dozen. Or the first 6 folks in red MAGA ball caps that came to any one of the events. In fact, if President Trump, I think Boris is going to tell us, got had 5 or 6 events. Just give me the first person in of all 5 events. I'll take those 5. You give me McCarthy's and let me send them to the White House. I guarantee you everything that they will get you a better deal. They will get you a meaningful deal. They will get you a deal that puts the country first, puts future generations first, not themselves. Kevin McCarthy said at the conference, we now know this from Eli Crane, said, we're going to be in a weaker position in a year from now. Well, what's going to change it? We have all the leverage. Oh, that's right. Trump will have won the primary. That's what he meant. That's what he was saying. And that's what he's saying to us. Those 149, they all hate Trump. And a couple of them that don't, they just don't understand that they're playing for the side that hates Trump. Hates Trump. And now it's obvious. Boris Epshteyn, you've actually got some polling that shows that that's going to be inevitable, at least what the numbers show, that come next May, Kevin McCarthy's right. The uniparty would be weaker because Donald Trump would once again have taken, this time, I think it's the 20 Keebler elves and slayed them all. Boris, can you walk us through your math, sir?
Steve, honored to be with you, honored to be with the posse. And before I do that, I just want to confirm something. So you went to Harvard, right?
Did I drop that? Did that come out?
I wasn't sure. I
also went to Georgetown. But I found out who else went there. Not mentioning you or Cortez. When I found out who else went there, I think I'd taken off my resume. But I digress.
Did you ask for a refund? Well, Steve, great to be with you.
Hey, dude, hold on. Stop. It's a Catholic school run by the Jesuits, dude. There are no refunds. Okay, don't even ask. There are no refunds.
There's no refunds, and unfortunately, there's no endowment either. So it's kind of a sad situation.
No duo.
Steve, great to be with you. It's a big day. President Trump dominating in Iowa. 6 events all over Iowa, interacting with the audience, interacting with the voters. A ton of typical Trump authenticity, right? Direct to the voter. And here's where it's coming out. The key polling, Stephen, people love the overarching national poll. We'll talk about them here in a minute. But if you look at the polling on the issues, that's really where President Trump is separating himself from, as you call them, the Keebler elves. So here first, and thanks so much, Memphis. This first poll, this is Morning Consult. And this is from this week, the polling on the key issues after the Florida governor's announcement, I guess we call it that, or the Hindenburg of presidential rollouts from last week. President Trump on the economy at 71, Florida governor 19, a delta of 52. You do not need an HBS Harvard Business degree to recognize that is an insurmountable lead. On immigration, President Trump 70, the Florida governor 20. Foreign policy 69-20. Protecting Medicare and Social Security 60 to 25. These are huge differences. Absolutely huge, dominating splits. And what they show is that the American people, and of course, especially the MAGA movement, the Republican Party, have decided that on the issues that matter to them, and the bottom line, it usually boils down to the economy, President Trump is the one they want back in office as soon as humanly possible. And the interesting thing, Steve, is that these polls, they resemble themselves across not just the national sample. This is national. Now let's go to the next slide, which is the state by state. Beautiful job, Memphis.
Hold on. Hang on. Hold. I can keep you through the break too, right? Because I kind of went on a roll there at the beginning. Let's go. I want to go back to that. Here's what's interesting. Is it the fact, because President Trump's, and this is why I love what the campaign's doing, or the folks around him are doing, these policy videos. And quite frankly, he's had some very powerful ones in the last couple of days. But as I said, we can't get to them. Just like John Solomon's got some incredible breaking news on the J6 situation of stuff he's done. We can't get to that either because we're very focused on this debacle with the debt ceiling. But when I see those numbers, if Denver could put that back, Memphis, could we just go and put the first slide back up here for a second? President Trump's, because those numbers are like jaw-dropping numbers, right, Boris, when there's that kind of spread. Is it a fact that President Trump, and this is what the beauty, this also puts the lie to the mainstream media. But my point is about Trump, he's got no policies, a cult of personality. This is just, they like his tweets or like his true socials, and they like he's calling people names and all that stuff. Actually, once again, the mainstream media either doesn't get, or both doesn't get it and don't want to tell the truth. People understand that he's got a couple of, a half a dozen to a dozen key policy areas that he is very definitive in the action he's taken and the way he approaches the world. And people understand that and they're comfortable with it. They like it, right? They support it. Is it the fact here that DeSantis is still too unformed in policy? Or do you think it's messaging? Or do you think the American people say, hey, look, we like this guy as a governor, but we don't know where he is on national security. We don't really know where he is on the economy. And we've seen the fight he's fighting against Disney's other corporations where it's pretty well defined. But on these other issues, we haven't seen it. So we can't make the determination. What are your thoughts on that?
Steve, I think it's all of the above. I think it's messaging, but it's also policy. And the Florida governor's been all over the place. Is he for business? Is he for jobs? Or is he, for attacking Disney to the point where they're pulling out and costing Florida $1 billion and thousands of jobs? His messaging on COVID has been all over the place. This is somebody who was aggressively pushing mandates, vaccines, and pushing shutdowns in his own state. Now he says he won't. I think what it comes down to is that the voters, especially the Republican MAGA voters, who are not going to be fooled by politicians. What they're seeing in the Florida governor is a typical politician who's trying to talk the talk to them, but not being direct. And they're not going to put up with that. This is not 2004. It is not 2008. It is not 2012. President Trump came in, and as you and I had the honor of playing roles, and he changed the world. He changed the world in 2016, and that absolutely history-altering win. And he also changed the Republican Party forever, because now MAGA runs and controls the Republican Party. And for somebody like DeSantis coming in and whatever, that's up to the mainstream media today, talking a lot about it, prompted by President Trump's truth. Very interesting. The bottom line is he doesn't appear authentic. And Steve, you and I have talked about this time and time and time again. If somebody running for office, whether they're a lifelong politician, a businessman who is an absolute amazing American success story, if they have to come across authentic, and the Florida governor is not, President Trump is.
Okay. Hang on one second. Just hold with me through the break. Boris Epshteyn is going to join us. A lot more math to go through here in the war room. Actually, and also if the Senate comes back, we're going to try to figure it out. We're going to jump to that. We'll talk about the Senate situation in a second. Back in a moment.
With Stephen K. Bannon.
Hey, Boris, thanks for staying through the break. I want to put back up, if Memphis could do this and go back to that chart, the first chart we had up. And I want to make sure the artists, because we haven't had you on, and we really haven't done a lot of polling. We had the Rasmussen guys, but they haven't. Boris has been coming for some of the Trump polling, but we've really been focused on issues, the economy. But this ties it all together. What I think is quite interesting. And interestingly enough, I think it dovetails perfectly with what Rasmussen's telling us, and it dovetails what Boris is telling us. Walk through, particularly for our podcast and radio audience. And this is why I need everybody to go to warroom.org and sign up for the email every morning, and make sure that you get our newsletter, because we put some of the videos up here so you can actually see it, and we put the charts and things like that you can't get if you're listening to the podcast or listening to the radio. Boris, walk us through this chart one more time. It's quite powerful.
No doubt about it, Steve. And this is Politico Morning Consult polling on the issues in the Republican primary. Again, this is not Rasmussen, and it's not Trafalgar, and it's not our good friend Boris who crushes it. This is a left of center poll. So on the economy, President Trump is at 71, and the Florida governor is at 19, a delta of 52. Let's put it this way. President Trump is over 3 times what Ron DeSantis is on the economy. On immigration, 70-20, a delta of 50. President Trump at 70, DeSantis at 20. Foreign policy, same thing, 69-20. Protecting Medicare and Social Security, President Trump at 60, and the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, at 25. Again, a delta of 35.
Hang on, but I want now I've had a chance to look at it. Hang on, now I've had a chance to look at it. The ads, we play the ads a lot from that pack that talk about DeSantis and the Social Security, which I keep saying his campaigns never answer. The Governor DeSantis may have a reasonable answer, but they've now gone for 6 weeks. That ads had a big impact because it's unanswered. So that right there is covered. Immigration, interestingly enough, that it got to be one of his hot things, was sending the immigrants up to Martha's Vineyard. So people know that, and the spread there is still extraordinary. As you know, in the Senate, Boris, one of the big issues, there's not enough Ukraine money in the $7 billion were basically approved. There's not enough Ukraine money, so they're going to be fighting that. DeSantis had his shot in Ukraine and quite frankly took the War Room's position and Tucker Carlson's position, and then come unwound 48 hours, 72 hours later. And I don't have a problem with the position. I have a problem if you're going to be commander-in-chief. Dude, this thing's got to be so well thought through. You can't be winging it. You can't be like making it up one day. Oh, I think this is what Tucker likes, right? This is what the War Room posse is going to like. I'll give this answer, and they say boo, and you totally unwound it. You're running to be commander-in-chief.
Well, also,
you got to have that. And so that's another.
Right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Said boo? Who pushed him back? Why did the Florida governor flip-flop so bad on Ukraine? Why? Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to send all the money in the world. Why did he do it? It's because his globalist rhino backers made him do it. He's just this is what we talked about before the break. All what you have in the Florida governor is very simple. You have a typical conservative ink, circa 2004, 2006 Republican politician. He wears the khakis. He goes to the country clubs. He does. Yeah. It's very simple. I mean, he looks like Scott Walker. He walks like Scott Walker. He talks like Scott Walker. He's Scott Walker.
Right. Hold on. He's Scott Walker. Hang on, as I say. But I was the first one to get that. That's my trademark. But I think he's been a good governor. Well, I've always said that. Just stay as governor. You can't be governor of America. You got Trump. Trump's been there. We don't have time we don't have time for auditions. I want to go to something, though, because the DeSantis campaign in the national media say, hey, Boris, I got it's great. And Trump puts out every other day, some national polls got him up by 90 points. National polls are irrelevant in this race because it's state by state. Do you have something that can make your argument that way, sir?
Absolutely. On the economy, next slide, please. Beautiful job again, Memphis. This is on the economy in the early states. And this is national research polling. Again, this is not, some super pro-Trump pollster out there. South Carolina, President Trump at 60, best to improve the economy. Florida governor at 11. 11. All these numbers are going to be, all these numbers are going to be under 20 for the Florida governor. South Carolina on the economy, President Trump 60, the Florida governor Ron DeSantis 11. New Hampshire, President Trump 54, Florida governor 13. In the state of Florida, let me say it again. In the state of Florida, President Trump on the economy 46, the Florida governor Ron DeSantis 18. Iowa, where President Trump is today and dominating, and the Florida governor had a pretty embarrassing stint as always. President Trump at 57, the Florida governor at 15, a delta of 42.
Do me a favor, and I need to go to the top and do this again. This is quite powerful, and I want people to absorb this. Take it from the top and do that again.
No doubt about it. Best to improve the economy in the early states, between head-to-head, not, with 20 Keebler elves, just President Trump versus the Florida governor. President Trump at 60, the Florida governor at 11, a delta of 49. In New Hampshire, on the economy, best to improve the economy, President Trump 54, the Florida governor at 13, a delta of 41. In Ron DeSantis, whatever you want to call him, in his home state of Florida, President Trump, best to improve the economy, 46. The Florida governor in his home state, 18. Maybe the four butt gas has something to do with it. Again, 46 to 18 on the economy in Florida. President Trump leads by 28 points. And in the beautiful state of Iowa, President Trump at 57, the Florida governor at 1515, a delta of 42. 57 to 15. President Trump leads by 42 on the economy in Iowa. And as we all know, you're starting in here, and it's May or June now of 2023, the year before. We're basically coming up on the anniversary when President Trump came down the escalator. I think it was June 17th, if memory serves me correctly. That's a holy day in MAGA, I know. Boris, does this show you as a strategist that DeSantis should have spent the last year or so defining himself more? And I'm not faulting him because I quite frankly agree with the Disney situation, what he's doing. But should he have taken time and defined himself more on the issues that people vote on a president? Economy, national security, immigration, the big muscles of American politics. Does this lead you to believe that this year or two that he did not come out and one of the things, he hides himself from the media a lot, but he didn't come out and make a forceful case so that when people think of him, they already have okay, I understand where he is on this. Now he is really introducing himself, which is kind of late in the ball game, particularly given the field, and particularly you're going against a guy who has been president, won the second time, had it stolen from him, and has the overwhelming backing of the MAGA movement. Do you think this is too late to do this for him? That's the key point that you said there in the end, Steve. And you're right. We're about 2 weeks from June 16, 2015, the anniversary of President Trump coming down the golden escalator. The issue for the Florida governor is not that he should have been doing this for 2 years. It's that he should have been smart, stayed as governor, and then run in 2028. The problem he has is that President Trump is the known quantity. We have serious problems, and we need serious people to solve those problems, not somebody who says he's going to make Iowa, Florida. That's not what the people of Iowa want to hear. Let's be honest. Judging on these numbers, it's not what the people of Florida want to hear. They want him to concentrate on Florida because let me tell you, Florida's a mess. I've been spending a lot of time down there. And the issue is that the Florida governor, for some reason, who knows why, there's a lot of stories of who's pushing him in his inner circle, whatever it may be. He thinks that what the Republican Party, the MAGA movement wants now is an alternative to the most successful president in modern American history. While our strongest, not even strongest sort of all, it's close, our strongest by a million, by whatever number you pick, by a gradient of decillion argument is that look at how this country was under President Trump and look how it is now under the guy who's falling over in Colorado. That's the argument. And the MAGA movement is smart. The Warren Posse is smart. Our voters are smart. They know what works. And what works is a contrast between, as you said, Steve, a known quantity and somebody who people trust and is authentic, and the Florida governor who, let's just be honest, hasn't been authentic. And the thing with Disney, people don't even remember what he's fighting about anymore. He's just losing. Sure, the Disney thing would have been interesting if he won, but he hasn't. He's gotten crushed time and time and time again. And if he's getting crushed by woke Disney, what's China going to do to him? It's just the bottom line is the Florida governor is not ready for prime time. President Trump is always in NFL Super Bowl form. And that's where these numbers are coming from. That's why he's up by 50 on the economy nationwide and in the early states.
You've got a couple of, let's do the other two charts before you punch out. And Dave Walsh is with me, but I'll bring Dave. I'm going to get to Dave on this China, Russia energy situation, but then I'll bring you back for the German situation. So I'll give a couple of minutes. Give me your other two charts because I think people need to see this.
This is the nationwide polling after last week's disastrous rollout of the Florida governor's campaign. Literally no bump within the margin of error. Somewhere, maybe 2 points up, maybe it's even. President Trump nationwide at 56, the Florida governor at 22, and then you go to the rest of the Keebler elves. And then the next poll, that's Morning Consult. The next poll is from Big Village. This is all taken again after that complete, absolute, horrific dumpster fire of a mess of a rollout. President Trump's lead went up in this poll. He's up 5 from 812 to he's at 58. The Florida governor's up 3, but the net change is +2 for President Trump from 2 weeks ago. And two-way, President Trump dominating 63 to 37. Again, what this speaks to is that the MAGA movement, the Republican Party, have no question in their mind. They want President Trump back in office as soon as possible. And you know what, Steve? That is the logical answer. Because if you look at where our country is, on the economy, on national security, on the border, on energy, literally there's no logical human on earth, unless you think there's 1,000 genders and you're out there, your brain has just been polluted. No logical human being on earth thinks that America is better off now than it was under President Trump. And that's why we need President Trump back in office as soon as humanly possible.
Boris, how do people get to you to find out more about the details of this in your morning newsletter? Where do they go?
Steve, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you, honor to be with the posse. My information, the website is hot. It's boriscp.com. Sign up right now on boriscp.com. Hot on Twitter at boriscp. On Getter, hot at boriscp. Hot on Truth Social at Boris. And the hottest on the gram, Boris_Epshteyn. Stay strong. God bless. And I'll talk to you soon.
Boris, thanks. Thanks for sharing that. Impressive. Really impressive. We're going to obviously be getting into more numbers. Nothing happened on the Senate floor. We'll get you updates on that. 202-224-3121 is the Senate number. Make sure you give them the what for. So the Financial Times of London today, as I said in the first show, Washington, Beijing, tensions have upended global order, warns Jamie Dimon. Okay, that was from a recording of a group he was talking to, a very elite group. and it was recorded unbeknownst to him. They're talking now about Jamie Dimon running for president. Brother Walsh, I need you to walk through. There's a changing geopolitical order. This is why, and by the way, you need to go to birchgold.com/Bannon, get The End of the Dollar Empire. You must read this. It's all free, 3 big installments. Dave Walsh, you've been tracking this. Talk to me. There's a changing geopolitical, geostrategic order in energy, and that is going to change the world as we know it. Is it not, sir?
Well, yeah, we were reporting a couple months ago the China-Iran meetings in China and the initial agreements Xi Jinping had with the head of government in Iran have now borne fruit for them. Last week, they inked a series of agreements, 6 MOUs and 2 contracts, China with Iran, on energy, logistics, and military cooperation. The energy one, very interesting. Iran will supply China oil at a 30% discount from supposed global benchmarks or relevant per barrel pricing benchmarks, which means below OPEC levels, at a 30% discount. Today, for example, that would be about $50 a barrel, not 70, 74, typically in the mid 40s. So just everyone should be aware the OPEC is an illegal consortium, an illegal cartel to keep prices high. It's an anti-monopolistic thing. And by the way, members of illegal cartels don't impose the same restrictions on one another. So when you step in and form your own agreement with them, you get a better price. Not the U.S., not Western Europe. China has accomplished that in 3 key agreements. Russia, a week before, committed to a whole host of agreements with Iran and Iraq on May 18th. Extensive cooperation agreements on oil extraction, on military cooperation, on oil enhancement, recovery enhancement processes and steps to firm the dependence of those countries on the Russian Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, China, petro bloc. By the way, back to China. China's procurement of oil and gas from Iraq and Iran will be in yuan, but also in yuan convertible. It has to be spent in China or using Angolan, Zambian, or Kenyan currency in exchange for that oil. Those are countries in tremendous debt to China. So the need for support for those currencies is very high to enable their payment of meeting debt service to China. So China's allowed that to trade in those currencies in exchange for oil as well, in the case of Iran and Iraq. So we have the East and China, Russia, the Kingdom, Iraq, Iran, tightening the vice on energy that matters, energy with the density to matter for industrial development, for military security, for the growth of their economy, while we're over here last night, again, 4-1, all due respect to the polls, party leadership, 4-1 in favor of continuance of the Biden IRA, which is entirely a green environmental program. So that's where our political leadership is, all in this party, all due respect to the polls. A dichotomy that we've never seen politically in 50 years. This is an untold story, the dichotomy of the way the people think vis-a-vis the polls we saw and what the party is doing. Unbelievable.
This is what's unbelievable is that in this agreement, the debt deal, they also they had some stuff for permitting. I got it. That's good. It's always good in some of these tax things. But the basic core philosophy in back of the Green New Deal and net zero carbon is essentially codified and baked in. Am I wrong in that? But they basically codify that and use that as a new baseline. Am I wrong in that, Dave Walsh?
No, yeah, I mean, you would think we would be in the desperate straits we're in economically, the currency and interest rates being hiked to throttle inflation. You would think we'd look at, like a family does, look at, okay, the discretionary items in a budget. And I'm telling you, discretionary is certainly hydrogen conversion, EV adoption incentives, wind and solar incentives, massively discretionary, that are being hiked by this administration, while we would otherwise be threatening Social Security payments, welfare payments, the payments to veterans for VA benefits, the military itself. Those are, of course, interest payments on our debt. Those I would call the payments that one must keep the promise on. These things are all discretionary. The United States emits 8% of the world's CO2. China emits more CO2 if it matters, and it doesn't look like it matters at all, than all of the OECD countries, including the U.S. combined. We furnish 8% of it, emit 8% of it. Bad word. These steps are meaningless. They're meaningless. And we're talking about technology in terms of carbon capture and hydrogen conversion that are massively expensive, have been tested and don't work. But yeah, now they're baked in as givens. They're baked in as givens in this budget process.
It's unbelievable. Let me go to one thing before I lose you. Got a couple minutes, and I'll figure out how to get you back on tomorrow or Saturday, because the geostrategic logic of the consolidation of the Eurasian landmass with, as I've said for years, Russia, Persia, and China, these three ancient civilizations. The underpinning of that is not just one belt, one road, this logistics system. We're only going to have about a minute. But it's the energy cooperation. Is it not, sir? They are combining into one energy mega superpower.
No, they are looking. China, with a huge need to continue its economic growth engine, needs 17 to 18 million barrels a day of oil. They only produce about 4 million themselves internally. Need Iraq, Iran, the number 2 and 3 producers in the Middle East, and of course the kingdom, to be aligned with them, and Russia, who are nearly as large as the kingdom in oil production, to basically cement their oil and gas supply for the next 25 to 30 years to grow their economy. While they'll host Macron in business trips to Beijing to try to promote French business investment by the Chinese and talk about how, we're cooperating on carbon in Africa, reducing carbon, and blah, blah, blah. No, look at what they're doing. The economy is completely committed to growing its oil and gas supply base to be as dominant as it possibly can. And our elites ignore this fact, what they're actually doing.
Dave, real quickly, what's your social media? We're going to get you back on. What's your social media?
Getter and True Social. Thank you, Steve.
Dave Walsh had a massive impact in Germany. We're going to get you back on, talk about the other great industrial power, Germany, and the change. Alternative for Deutschland on a roll, polling at 26% because of coming up with an alternative energy plan. Back here live tomorrow morning. Make sure you go to birchgold.com/Bannon, get the End of the Dollar Empire. If things happen tonight, we're going to go, Grace and Mo are going to get us up on Getter Live, so be looking out for that. Until then, we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. when you will be in the War Room.